Electric cars are all very worthy, but by and large they tend to lack any kind of want one factor. Here's one though that you might really covet, the Honda E. Because it's very small and doesn't go particularly far on a single charge, it's very much an urban town runabout. But what a cool one to have.
What should a city-based full electric urban runabout really be if an element of desirability as well as efficiency is called for? Well, something like the Honda E? We can see why you might think so. The Japanese brand believes that to date, EV makers have been producing boring, pricey products with expensive technology, delivering extended range that city folk don't actually really need, which explains the thinking behind what is arguably the cleverest and most innovative Honda we've seen in decades. First, a bit of background. Now, Honda has been dabbling with EV technology since the late 80s, and it was actually an early leader in electric vehicle tech. Its EV Plus model back in '97, for example, was the first commercially available electric vehicle to break away from old-fashioned lead-acid battery packs. In the early years of this century, though, the company's engineers changed direction, rightly deciding that hydrogen fuel cell powertrains were a more sensible long-term solution. When a public hydrogen refueling infrastructure failed to materialize, though, Honda was forced back to the EV drawing board again. But by now, of course, the game had moved on and the company was playing catch up. It took until 2017 for things to get back on track with two concept cars, the urban EV and the sports EV, both directly influencing the final production version of this futuristic looking production model. It's not only the looks here that break the mold of current compact EV design. Wanting the car to be small and quick to charge, in keeping with its urban remit, the powertrain battery is also small, 35.5 kilowatt hours, which means quite a meagre WLTP rated driving range, at best just 125 miles. Honda is unrepentant. They point out that the average British driver's commute is only about a fifth of that. That's an argument also championed by the marketing behind two directly comparable and similarly priced rival models, the Mini Electric and the Mazda MX-30. Those cars compensate range anxiety with fashionable design, but not to quite the same extent as this one does. It could be a motor show concept, but it's not. It's in production and you can buy it. So we're going to test it. Should be interesting. Getting going's easy. You simply turn the car on, ignore all the sci-fi sound effects, lift your foot off the brake, and this Honda begins to ease forward after you press drive. A gentle tap on the throttle then whisks you away. Instead of the usual frantic EV model torque-rich rush, there's a lovely linear feel to the way this car has been designed to accelerate. One writer called it a speed hug. In fact, everything about this car is different, including the way it's been engineered. Now, drive is from the back, not the front. There's a DC electric motor, not an AC one, and it sits under the boot floor, not under the bonnet. Even the wheels are of a contrary design. The rims are staggered in width, like they are on Honda's NSX supercar. They're half an inch narrower at the front than at the rear, and in keeping with that, there is the kind of perfect dynamic 50-50 weight distribution which is foreign to most other EVs. All of this we think you'll like, even the curious electric motor placement which decimates boot space but makes possible a tiny London taxi-like 4.3 metre turning radius. The differentiation point that we think you'll be less happy with is Honda's decision to go against the grain when it comes to battery size and not to prioritise here the thing that most EV customers do prioritise, driving range. You can't give a car like this a heavy all-steel structure and a resulting 1.5 tonne ton curb weight and then give it a little 35.5 kilowatt hour battery and expect it to go very far on a single charge, and it doesn't. The official WLTP figure is up to 137 miles, but in the real world, well, you get sweaty palms just trying to reach 3 figures. Honda's argument that a small car like this would be compromised by a bigger battery is somewhat undermined by the new Fiat 500 EV, which is 206mm smaller, has a 42 kilowatt hour battery and goes 199 miles between charges. But at least this Honda E's 2 closest lifestyle-orientated small EV challengers, the Mini Electric and the Mazda MX-30, which both also use the 35.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, are similarly restricted. The Japanese maker would do better to point out that the people who really care about the range issue almost certainly wouldn't have chosen a Honda E anyway, which is absolutely true. Let those people have their sensible little boringly configured automotive appliances. The engineering behind this car seems to say, well, here's something fun and different and clever. And it actually is all of those things. The light, quick steering is helped by the fact that this is all that the front wheels have to do, and there's a rather pleasurable feeling of being propelled from the rear rather than being dragged from the front. And that makes you minded to enjoy a surprising level of agility, promoted by the lower centre of gravity and the wide track, which together offset the effects of the tall stance and the portly curb weight. Switch out of the normal drive mode into the alternative sport setting, which further decimates the range, and there's an appropriate bit of zip to go with all this, especially up to 30 miles an hour, and particularly if you choose this top advanced variant with its 154 PS electric motor, and that makes 60 in 8.3 seconds. That's 7/10 faster than the base spec version, which uses the same motor in detuned 136 PS form. Mid-range punch is pleasing. The 30 to 50 miles an hour overtaking increment takes just 3 seconds, but as with most small EVs, you're restricted to a pretty limited top speed, in this case 90 miles an hour. If that's an issue though, then you should probably be considering a more conventional kind of Super Mini. One reason that you might do that would be to get a better quality of ride. Small electric vehicles do tend to clonk about over speed humps and potholes. They struggle with the excess weight of all those battery cells. But this one doesn't though, primarily because it ignores the crude old torsion beam rear suspension setup that most compact EVs use, and instead features a properly engineered all-independent arrangement with coil springs on each corner. The result is a genteel smoothness of gate that cruises over tarmac tears and over undulations more adroitly than just about any other small car we can think of, and that's an astonishing achievement for a tiny, weighty little battery-powered hatch. In contrast, the rival Mini Electric has all the ride subtlety of a hill descent on a tin tray. This, along with the exemplary refinement, means that longer journeys would comfortably be possible in a Honda E if the battery range allowed you to attempt them. But let's not get back into all that again. Instead, the Japanese maker wants us to concentrate on what it calls the joy of driving electric. It really can be quite enjoyable, even in the kind of congested environment that would normally be anything but. You'll never tire of being able to turn on a sixpence. Slotting into tight spaces is simple, even if you don't use this advanced model's brilliant parking pilot system, which does it all for you. You'll almost never need to do a 3-point turn, and you can flip the car around 180 degrees in a street just 8.6 meters wide. Out of town, this car isn't quite as sporty through the turns as a Mini Electric, but it does get close. Body rolls kept well in check, and there's plenty of turn-in traction, especially if you've chosen this advanced variant with the larger 17-inch wheels, which do reduce the range by 6 miles, but which come shod with grippier sports car-like Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres. The braking system's been very carefully engineered too, progressive, natural feeling, and infinitely variable depending on your energy regeneration preferences. Pressing this lower console single pedal button applies a level of regenerative retardation so severe that you'll hardly ever need to brake yourself, and you can vary the whole process by fractional degrees using this provided set of steering wheel paddle shifters. That's one thing that you'll have to get used to. The other is the replacement of the conventional door mirrors by 6-inch colour screens which sit at either side of the dash. This side mirror camera system is certainly a talking point. Whether it actually offers any real advantage is another question. The fixed images sit a little lower than ordinary mirrors would, and they don't allow the usual inclination of the head to get a better perspective for what's behind or around you. But Honda is convinced that there is a benefit. They wheel out stats that suggest an improvement of rear blind spot vision by either 10% or up to 50% depending on screen settings. Plus, of course, this system makes the car usefully narrower for really tight city streets. On this plusher advanced spec model, if you want your entire view backwards to be screen based, then you can flip the rear view mirror there upwards to turn it into a narrow rearward monitor, very much like the option offered on a Range Rover Evoque. There is, in short, a lot to like about the E. For many people it won't be enough. They'll disparage the looks, they'll moan about the driving range, and they'll carp about the cabin. But don't be put off by them if, in your search for a second or third car, you feel you might really fall in love with this one. There's really nothing quite like it. Rarely have we ever tested a car that looked quite so much like a motor show concept. Not everyone will like the look of this Honda E, but there's certainly nothing like it on the road. It's certainly small, just 3.9 meters in length, and it's quite tall too. The roofline is 100 mils higher than a rival Mini electric hatch. It's a clean sheet design with virtually nothing visually or in terms of engineering shared with the brand's only fractionally larger Jazz Hybrid, which is impressive. There's brand DNA here, but the character and the style of what a small Honda should be has been reimagined for the 21st century. And so much about it will be fascinating if you find a different approach to be also an intriguing one. Where to start? With the bonnet perhaps, it being here rather than in the front or rear wing that the charging flap's located, beneath a classy glass cover that conceals the smartly illuminated sockets. Above it, this panoramic windscreen blends into the A-pillars and the side windows, but your attention will be rather more taken by what lies below. Black panels with unique concave profiles. They're one of this car's defining style motifs, particularly here at the front end, where this feature is flanked by cute circular front headlights, which designer Ken Sahara says help to define the human face of the car, emphasizing its simple, clean design. Now, these lamps are actually quite intricate. They incorporate a daytime running light ring, a turn indicator ring, and a high beam projector in the center. The shaping is one of the two things that pay homage to the model with which Honda pioneered its presence in the small car segment, the 1972 era Civic. The other is this gently scalloped detail line that runs across the flank and up to the C-pillar, framing the glass house and adding a sense of depth to the smooth surfacing. Oh yes, smooth surfaces, they're another styling theme here, with almost nothing allowed to spoil the clean, flush finishing. Not front door handles, which only pop out proud of the panelwork as you approach the car. No roof edge rain gutters, the aerodynamics doesn't require them. You don't even get door mirrors. These have been replaced by a clever side mirror camera system working via tiny lenses housed in these little brackets attached where the mirrors would normally be. Now, they eliminate the need for channel lines to divert airflow and rainwater away from the sides of the car. There's no roof antenna either. That is instead integrated into the top edge of the rear window. Plus, the rear door handles, they are integrated into the C-pillars. The high gloss black roof conceals a full width sunroof you'd never know was there. The short front and rear overhangs give an assured pavement stance, and in keeping with the soft edged feel, subtly flared wheel arches are seamlessly blended into the flanks, and they house rims at either 16 or 17 inches in size. The biggest size is fitted to this faster advanced variant, and it features a two-tone design with a large central form that covers the brake disc and calipers from view. The rear reprises the front end theme, jewel-like circular LED lamps at either end of a black concave panel. Again, the fittings are intricate with the tail lamp, the brake light and the turn indicator incorporated into a single unit. From here you get a real perspective for the width of this design. Not many small cars measure as much as 1750 millimeters across. A Jazz, for example, is 57 millimeters narrower. All of which gives this Honda a very planted feel. The stuff you can't see deserves equal recognition. You would expect simply a repackaged version of the front-driven chassis that underpins this car's Jazz hybrid showroom stablemate. Instead, what you actually get is a completely different steel platform, which breaks with small EV convention by sighting the electric motor at the back, where unusually for a compact battery-powered model, it drives the rear wheels. More conventionally, the power electronics and the onboard charger sit at the front, and the lithium-ion battery pack sits beneath the cabin floor, the main determinant in creating the portly curb weight of at least 1,513 kilos. And if you thought there was lots to talk about outside, wait until you take a seat in the cabin. Getting there can be quite sophisticated too. This little N badge on the B pillar designates that the car can be unlocked using a near-field communication digital key app on an Android smartphone. You simply tap the handset against this badge, and then once inside, you touch the phone again on the dashboard and you put in a PIN number to start the vehicle. Now, if there's no network connection, then the digital key that will still work via a Bluetooth connection within the proximity of the car. Access using the conventional key remote or the available My Honda Plus app is obviously easier, and as you approach your Honda E, key in pocket, the lamp rings illuminate in welcome, the door handles pop out and the welcome entry system unlocks the car. Inside, you're greeted by a cabin that'll be unlike anything you've ever sat in. Designed under stylist Akinori Miyoi, it's open plan, it's avant-garde, and the full-width digital dashboard incorporates more screens than you'd find in a computer hacker's bedroom. It's supposed to give you the feeling of being in a lounge, and if your lounge resembles the shop window of an electrical store, then you might well identify with that. We think, though, you're less likely to appreciate these light wood artificial inlays. They seem like an odd trimming choice in such a futuristic car, but at least everything's light and airy. The generous wheelbase facilitates far more interior space than you'd ever think would be possible from the diminutive exterior dimensions. The ambiance is embellished by light materials, by big windows, a standard fit sunroof, and the deletion of the usual transmission tunnel, which creates this large flat area between the front footwells. The big talking point, though, is this full-width display made up of no fewer than 5 colour screens, an 8.8-inch one for the instrument binnacle, 2 12.3-inch oblong displays joined at the centre of the fascia, and a 6-inch monitor at either end of the dash, relaying images from the SMCS, the side mirror camera system we mentioned earlier. Now, we'll get to the SMCS tech in a minute, but let's start with these two big Honda Connect monitors in the middle here, which dominate the dash like a huge flat screen TV, and which can be used in much the same way for movies and gaming, as well as for the more usual infotainment functions. And there are touchscreen menus which sit at either end of this display arrangement. Now, the idea is that you can select what you want and then use this virtual button here to switch the screen across. So, for example, you can set the navigation system and then push it onto the further screen so that you can then prioritize, say, audio or media settings. Or you could get your passenger to set priority functions for you and then swipe them across to you in your line of sight. It's all rather neat. Other functions include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, Bluetooth, access to various apps like AHA from the Honda App Center, and an EV menu for all things electrified. There's also a Wi-Fi hotspot via which you can stream movies. These monitors are also the portal from which you can use this advanced model's multi-view camera system. That's part of the impressively sophisticated Honda Parking Pilot setup, which uses 4 cameras and 12 sonar sensors to identify spaces and steer you in and out of them. Plus, integrated into these central screens is an enhanced level of intuitive AI tech voice control, courtesy of the provided Honda Personal Assistant. And this offers the potential for instruction-based conversations, prefaced by OK Honda, although only if you have a data connection. Now that's fair enough if you wanted to, for example, search for restaurants, parking spaces, fuel stations and so on as you drive, but it's just annoying if all you want it to do is to find a radio station or call the cabin. An app history display allows you to swipe through your recently used applications, and if you don't want to select anything but you just want something like a calming ambience, you can choose various wallpaper graphics. That's if you don't want to upload your own. Or there's an aquarium option with fish perambulating from side to side. Yes, really. As for the other information you'll need, well, of course, it's displayed through the thin-rimmed two-spoke steering wheel on an instrument binnacle screen. Old-fashioned gauges would seem somewhat out of place in a car with technology like this. And the display of the monitor in question is as willfully eclectic as the rest of the cabin design is. There's no binnacle hood above the screen for a start, which looks odd, and it can sometimes make it rather hard to read in direct sunlight. And when the TFT digits spring into life, the wide range of information provided can initially look somewhat randomly displayed until you figure out where everything is and why it's there. Plus, the resolution and graphics aren't of the currently fashionable sharp kind, but if you don't mind that, you'll not find much to fault with the sheer range of information available from selectable displays. Using this little home button on the wheel rim, you can choose various types of EV data or access settings for audio, phone, navigation and safety. Fortunately, those two outer side mirror camera system screens we mentioned earlier are somewhat higher res, pioneering, claims Honda, conveniently forgetting that a similar arrangement was first introduced on Volkswagen's futuristic XL7 model and currently features as an expensive option on an Audi e-tron. Here, although the positioning is a little lower than a conventional door mirror, the crisper monitors work better. They offer normal and wide view options, which respectively improve rear blind spot vision by either 10% or up to 50%, although because they're fixed images, you can't incline your head get a better perspective of what's behind or around you. In compensation, the displays have been overlaid with useful guidelines to help you judge exactly how far away you are from other cars when you indicate. And the designers claim too that the rearward resolution of these screens in poor weather, low light or at night is better than it would be from a mirror surface. Plus the camera unit housings, they're shaped to prevent water drops on the lens, and they feature a water repellent coating too on the lens surface. On this plusher advanced spec model, if you want your entire view backwards to be screen based, then you can flip this rear view mirror upwards to turn it into a narrow rearward monitor, much like the option offered on a Range Rover Evoque. Here though, it doesn't work quite as well because the camera lens this feed draws on is mounted inside the rear window rather than being integrated into an antenna on the roof, which in turn means that rain or mist on the glass will obscure the camera's view. Enough with screens and media tech. What else do you need to know here? The light textiles and woods, even the brown seat belts here, they evoke a calming, almost Volvo-like environment, and the soft flat seats, which perch you quite high, are upholstered in the kind of fabric which is also used on the door cards that you might find on a chic high-end sofa, but which here might cause a few upholstery burns given the lack of lateral cornering support offered by these chairs. Still, the boxy shape means that all-round visibility is quite good, and we're pleased that Honda has resisted the temptation to incorporate the ventilation controls into a screen function, which would have made for easier design but less intuitive user functionality than you get from these preferable physical nods and buttons, which sit under a narrow row of vents which stretch towards the passenger door. Not quite so ergonomic is the rather obscured placement of the starter button, which you find yourself constantly searching for at the beginning and end of journeys. At least it doesn't prompt an annoying series of bings and bongs when you use it though. The curious lower dash design has meant the need for intuitive thought when it comes to storage solutions. The fact that the center stack and the lower console don't join has sacrificed the lower storage bin that you usually have. It's replaced less satisfactorily by this little fabric pocket here. Presumably this is intended for your phone, because above it sit a range of rather ugly power points, a USB-A port and a couple of USB-C attachments, plus a 12 volt, and so you can hook up your console for the Nintendo style gaming functionality we mentioned earlier, an HDMI port, and even an AC 230 volt 3-pin plug. The end of this lower operating service between the seats incorporates a pull-out strap for the single cup holder. The module itself houses the various buttons for the single-speed automatic gearbox, along with the electronic handbrake and drive mode selector. Just behind sits a long, narrow storage box that you can segregate with different slot separators. Apart from that, it's more conventional. There's a reasonably sized glove box, a ticket clip in the driver's sun visor, and rather small door pockets, which each incorporate a small bottle holder. Getting out to take a look in the back, you'll notice that these doors don't shut with much of a quality thunk, but that's because of the trendy frameless variety. What about the rear? Can it really replicate the relatively spacious feel delivered up front? To some extent, yes. This sofa-like seating actually looks like a sofa here, although not a particularly inviting one, more the kind of thing you'd find in a student's loft apartment. Because of the battery pack beneath the floor, this bench can't do anything clever like it can in this model's Jazz showroom stablemate, where the base lifts up cinema seat style. It is also disappointing that you can only seat two back here, particularly as the virtual absence of a central transmission tunnel means that space for a third person would be possible at a pinch if a belt had been provided for them. Door bends, they're lacking. All you get are these small bottle holders. But there are some nice interior touches like twin USB ports and these twin overhead LED ceiling spot lamps for each side, activated by switches here on the B pillars. The door cards are much nicer than you'd normally find in a small car. They're upholstered in two shades of fabric with copper coloured detailing, and you get seat back pockets too. You do sit quite upright, but that's fine because of the tall roofline. But this rear privacy glass darkens much of the airy feel that the decently sized side windows would otherwise give you. Finally, let's take a look out back. Okay, so you can't expect too much in terms of boot space from a car just 3.9 metres in length, but we'd hope for a bit more than this, 171 litres. To give you some class perspective, a tiny mini electric 3-door hatch gives you 211 litres, while the trunk of a similarly sized Mazda MX-30 EV is more than twice as big at 366 litres. For reference, Honda's fractionally larger Jazz Hybrid offers 304 litres. Even worse, the space you do get here will be to quite a significant extent taken up by these two charging lead bags, because there's no space for them to sit in this shallow compartment here beneath the cargo area base. Unlike a Mini Electric, you don't get an adjustable height boot floor either. Primarily, this paucity of space is down to the way that sighting the drive motor low down back here has forced the height of this floor right up. You can see why other EV makers don't do that. 2 bag hooks, 4 silver tie-down points, and a couple of LED lights are provided. But that bijou backseat design doesn't allow for any sort of split folding arrangement, so the backrest has to be folded down in one rather cumbersome section. Now, that will be annoying if you'd hoped to carry something like, for example, a folded buggy or pushchair and a single rear-seated passenger. With everything folded, 861 litres of capacity is on offer if you load up to the roof, or 571 litres if you load to the window line. Those figures are about a third less than is offered by the Jazz model we just mentioned. The Honda E range is pretty simple, and it's based around this single 5-door body style. Choose between either the base 134 brake horsepower variant, which from launch and at the time of this test in autumn 2020 cost £26,160, or more relevantly £299 a month with a typical finance deal. That is after subtraction of the government's usual plug-in car grant. You'd probably ideally though want the better specified and the slightly faster 152 brake horsepower advanced spec variant that we've been trying here, for which at the time of this test Honda wanted £28,660 or £349 a month on that typical finance deal, again after subtraction of the plug-in car grant. Honda wants all its models to be electrified, but this is the brand's first full EV. The only slightly larger Jazz Super Mini is a full hybrid, which is why, although a Jazz is a slightly larger car, it's also vastly cheaper. That model is priced from around £19,000. So basically, Honda e-money would get you a plusher version of the company's much larger Civic family hatch. So what kind of value proposition does the sticker price here represent in the market for compact EVs? Well, let's take a look, and we'll quote prices which have already taken into account subtraction of that government grant. Firstly, let's address the elephant in the room. That's a driving range which really harks back to the early days of EV motoring. It's WLTP rated at just 137 miles on 16-inch rims. Now that might be a problem for you. City car shaped small EVs like the Volkswagen e-up and the Seat Me Electric, which cost from around £20,000, well, they can better that by around, well, nearly 30 miles. And the new Fiat 500, which costs around about the same as the plusher version of this Honda, gets up to around 200 miles. Super mini sized EVs like Renault Zoe, Peugeot's E208 and Vauxhall's Corsa E cost from around £29,000 and offer much greater range capabilities in the 200 to 245 mile bracket. If you are interested in any of the small BEV models just mentioned, then you probably won't much like the idea of struggling up to a 3-figure range in this Honda. The brand, however, is unrepentant. They want this car to be small and quick to charge in keeping with its urban remit. Now, yes, you will pay nearly as much here as you would for a more spacious Super Mini EV with a longer range, but in return, you'll get dinkier dimensions, more pleasing drive dynamics, and a much more fashionable look and feel. Now, if those advantages chime with you, then the rival models that you really ought to be considering against this full battery Honda model are the two direct competitors which share its objectives, its restricted range and its lifestyle remit. The Mini Electric, which has only 3 doors, that costs from around £27,000, and the Mazda MX-30, which has 5 doors and is more SUV-like in style, costs from around £26,000. All 3 of these trendy EV models will have their own distinct following, and if you're seduced by the daring design of this Honda E, you'll probably accept no substitute. If so, the deal might be sealed in Honda's favour by a generous standard specification. So, is that what you get here? Well, let's see. Key across-the-range equipment features include automatic transmission, the value of which you'll need to factor in if you're making comparisons with combustion engine Super Mini rivals, plus the clever side camera mirror system with its virtual door mirrors, which we've been talking about throughout this test. In fact, none of the really core cleverness that marks this car out is denied to customers of the entry-spec base version. So at that most affordable level, you'll get the pop-out door handles, the cleverly concealed sky roof, the single pedal control button, regenerative braking control paddle shifters, and the 2 12.3-inch Honda Connect central infotainment screens with their built-in Garmin navigation, Wi-Fi, app integration, 6-speaker DAB audio system, and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring systems. The brand has worked on the voice control element of this Connect setup, and they've come up with what it calls the Honda Personal Assistant. Now this uses Alexa-style AI smart artificial intelligence, so you can have instruction-based conversations with that system. Instructions like, "Okay Honda, find me an Italian restaurant with free parking and Wi-Fi that's open now." Well, they are apparently possible, although usually we haven't been able to try that here because unlike other personal assistant systems that we recently tested, this one needs a strong data connection to work. Other standard features at base level include 16-inch alloy wheels, auto LED headlamps with high beam support, rear privacy glass, keyless entry, adaptive cruise control, front and rear parking sensors, and a wide range of camera safety features that we'll cover off in just a moment. Inside with base trim, as well as all those screens, there's heated seats, climate control, a rear view camera, and a leather steering wheel. Everything you'd want, really. Still, if you are wanting more, then this quicker 152 bhp advanced spec model provides it. Although if you take up Honda's offer of these larger 17-inch black wheels, you don't have to have them. That 137-mile range figure will fall to just 131 miles. Other advanced spec features include a couple of extra camera safety features. We'll cover those off for you in a moment, as I said. And the windscreen de-icer, that's basically heating elements embedded into the glass, plus a heated steering wheel, along with a premium audio system featuring 8 speakers and a dedicated hardware amplifier. There's also a center camera mirror system for the rear view mirror, just in case you didn't think there were enough screens already, with more digital images available on the central Honda Connect monitors via a multi-view camera system. That is an integral part of a very effective Honda Parking Pilot setup, which uses 4 cameras and 12 sonar sensors and can search for available spaces and then park the car for you without the need for you to operate the steering wheel, the gears, the accelerator or the brake. It can cope with parallel spaces, bays or diagonal slots, even if there are no white lines, and it can assist you with maneuvering back out of the space too. All Honda E customers get access to the My Honda Plus smartphone app, which aims to keep owners connected to their cars remotely. There's plenty of EV specific stuff. The app will notify you when charging is complete, and it will alert you to any charging interruptions. Plus there are specific options for cabin preconditioning, colder, normal and warmer. And there are further options for auto defrosting of the front and the rear glass. You can look at journey history, journey times, distances traveled and average speed, and the app can score the efficiency of your driving too. Plus, like most such apps, this one can let you lock or unlock the car from wherever you are, and it'll also alert you if the alarm goes off. The app also provides location monitoring and car tracking via GPS to provide anti-theft peace of mind. And an intelligent geofencing feature allows preset geofence zones to be activated, so that if you should loan the car out, say to your son or daughter, you'll be alerted on your smartphone if they have ventured too far in it. In addition, the app will allow you to plan journeys in advance on either a phone or tablet, and then download them directly onto the Garmin sat-nav system when you get into the car, saving all that usual faffing about when you start off. What about options? Well, before you start considering embellishments here, you'll obviously need to budget for a garage wall box if you don't already have one. Honda wants you to have its bespoke designed e-Progress pedestal, which will always ensure that the car is charged using the cheapest possible electricity. You don't have to faff about with timers, working out when the tariffs are least expensive. You just plug it in and go. You might also want to consider the digital key. Now that will allow you to unlock the car and start it via a PIN number using your smartphone handset, although that will only be if the handset in question is of the Android variety. Now you could share the necessary digital key app and that PIN number with your friends and family to make multiple usages easier. And beyond that, well, you might be pleased to hear that you don't have to have all the light wood cabin trimming. It can be replaced instead by alternative bronze inlays. They might conceivably feel that these look equally odd. If, like us, you're not a particular fan of all the grey, scratchy fabric seat finishing, then you'll be interested in the leather upholstery option. That covers the front and the rear chairs much more luxuriously in dark brown or midnight black Napa hide. You can also get doorstep garnishes. They can also be illuminated, and there's illumination for the center console too. What about aesthetic embellishment for the outside? Well, it's a pity that the paint colour palette isn't a bit more interesting. Apart from a solid lime green charged yellow, the other shades, which all cost £550 more, represent a fairly boring mix. White and black pearl finishes, grey steel metallic, or this premium crystal blue metallic finish. Whatever your choice, you can add to this car's pavement presence with a Nordic silver finish for both the A-pillars and the side camera mirror system unit cover, or possibly a black sticker set for the bonnet and for tailgate. There is what's rather irritatingly called an URBAN pack, urban pack, with black or blue trimming additions supposed to reference the look of Honda's 2017 Urban EV Motor Show concept car. Doorstep garnishes, front and rear bumper mouldings and side body trims, all of which are also available as individual accessories. You can also add a black front underspoiler, and the 17-inch alloy wheels can be had with blue rims if you don't like this gunpowder black finish. As for practical stuff, well, you can add front and rear mudguards and a 13-pin trailer harness for the rear bumper, onto which can be attached a cycle carrier. An interior protection pack that'll give you a reversible rubber boot mat, plus front and rear rubber mats, and you can also have a charge port lid cover to protect that charging area when you're charging in harsh conditions. There is also a reversible boot mat that you can just flip over to reveal a wipe clean surface when you're carrying muddy items. On to safety. Now, the Japanese maker wanted camera safety provision on this car to be class leading, which meant the addition to the usual Honda sensing package of 3 extra features, which at the time of this test you couldn't have on this car's Jazz hybrid showroom stablemate. Lead car departure notification, that's for traffic cues, and it notifies you when the car in front has started moving. Collision mitigation throttle control, that will prevent sudden acceleration on starting the car and immediately moving off in either reverse or drive when there is an obstacle in the way, say a post or a low wall. Similarly, the low speed brake function also guards against low speed parking impacts of the same sort. It automatically applies the brakes if an impact with a solid object is imminent. Otherwise, the Honda Sensing package, which is standard across both variants of this car, is pretty much as it is on the Jazz or the Civic. It uses a wide view camera rather than the more limiting features of a radar system. Now, that approach enhances the safety system's field of vision, and it allows more nighttime operation. And that's particularly useful for the collision mitigation braking system. That's Honda's autonomous braking setup, and that can detect pedestrians where there's no street lighting, and it can alert the driver when it detects errant cyclists. In addition, collision mitigation braking will apply the brakes when the car cuts across or turns into the path of an oncoming vehicle. Now, as we mentioned earlier, auto high beam, that works over 25 miles an hour, and adaptive cruise control, they're also standard. There's also a road departure mitigation system which notices when you veer towards the road edge, as well as warning you if you cross the lane delineating lines without indicating, in which case a lane keeping assist system will gently steer you back to where you ought to be. There is also a preceding vehicle proximity warning distance feature. That's there to stop you from getting too close to the car in front. And traffic sign recognition, that's another standard part of the package. And in this case, it's actually a bit different, because where it shows on the 7-inch instrument binnacle display 2 road signs can be displayed at any one time, one for speed and another for highway instructions, no passing and no entry, for example. This traffic sign feature also drives this model's intelligent speed limiter. Now, from the traffic sign recognition system, this setup knows exactly what the prevailing speed limit is at any one time, and it won't let you break it unless you persist on the throttle. Now, theoretically, that could make speeding tickets a thing of the past. Now, we mentioned earlier that this advanced model has a couple of extra camera safety features. There's blind spot information, and that stops you from dangerously pulling out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot, and a cross-traffic monitor. Now, that warns you of oncoming vehicles when you're reversing out of a parking space. Now, you can monitor all the various safety systems via a selectable driver assist system setup display on the center dash screen. All of that builds on the normal safety features that you'd now expect on a car of this kind. Like every current newly designed model, this one gets an e-call system, which in the event of an accident where the airbags go off, will automatically advise the emergency services of your exact GPS location. Plus, of course, you also get the usual passive safety features, ISOFIX child seat fastenings, a tyre deflation warning system, and hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. There is stability control, of course, Honda's VSA, Vehicle Stability Assist System. Plus, there's the usual ABS braking setup with brake assist. Now, that helps in emergency stops, and those will be advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard flashers. This Honda E is also intrinsically safe. High-strength materials are used strategically in the body structure to improve structural rigidity, and 3 protective ribs along each side of the chassis protect the battery from side impact loads, while a pop-up bonnet improves pedestrian protection. Honda explains away the restricted 137-mile WLTP-rated driving range by reminding us that this is an urban-based EV, primarily for people who habitually drive in the centre of cities. So yes, that would mean people who probably live in a flat, in which case they won't have off-street parking, in which case they won't even be able to consider an EV in the first place. It's for that reason, of course, that electric cars are actually bought by suburban folk who have a driveway and a garage in which they can install a wall box. Interestingly, there is also a lot of interest from customers in really rural areas. For these people, refilling petrol or diesel tanks can mean a lengthy drive to the nearest garage, so charging overnight at home is an infinitely preferable solution. All of these types of buyer are going to do a double take at this car's range figure in an era where EV super minis and even some EV city cars like the new Fiat 500 can easily manage around 200 miles between charges. It's a dilemma that the engineers here have struggled with, as you'd hope that they might have. Assistant Large Project Leader Takehiro Shinya reckons that if you were to give this car a larger battery, then you would have to add 20 centimeters of length and 150 kilos of weight, both of which would completely change its character. When pushed, he admits that the range could be massaged by adding an extra battery pack under the rear seats, but that would still adversely affect the beautiful 50-50 balance that the engineers strove so hard for. And for what? Given the average motorist's daily commuting mileage is no more than a fifth of this car's quoted operating range, you either accept that argument, which is easier to do after you've enjoyed the exemplary drive dynamics of this car, or you'll be mildly dismayed by the realization that a real-world 100-mile range, which is about what we've been getting on this test, means that you won't be able to venture anywhere further than about 45 miles from your starting point without either recharging halfway or an attack of sweaty range anxiety in the last part of your journey home. That's despite what Honda says is a unique thermal management system that's supposed to optimize the range of the water-cooled and heated battery pack in high and low temperatures, and despite also sleek aerodynamics aided by those SMCS door mirror cameras, which apparently contribute to a 3.8% improvement in efficiency and range. The range figure we quoted earlier, by the way, referenced a base model on 16-inch wheels, which are shod with low rolling resistance Yokohama Blue Earth A tyres. The larger 17-inch rims, which are optional on this plusher advanced spec variant, get more conventional Michelin Pilot Sport 4 rubber, and this, along with the bigger rim size, drops that range capability down to 131 miles. Of course, the range issues wouldn't be so much of a problem here if we had a decent public charging infrastructure in this country. If on every street corner or at every service station there was a kind of CCS2 50 kilowatt DC fast charger that could give this Honda an 80% charge in just 31 minutes, but there isn't, and there won't be for some time to come. Still, at least the small 35.5 kilowatt hour battery size this car shares with its two closest rivals, the Mini Electric, which manages up to 145 miles, and the Mazda MX-30, which manages only 124, is quicker than a big lithium-ion pack to charge. A 6.6 kilowatt home or public AC charger will replenish to 100% in just 4.1 hours. A domestic 3-pin 2.3 kilowatt AC plug would take 18.8 hours. You can, by the way, use a super fast 100 kilowatt charging point if you can find one. They're very rare, but doing so wouldn't be any quicker than with a 50 kilowatt DC fast charger, because this E can't accept a feed with any more than 35 kilowatts of charge. With a typical electricity tariff, you'll be paying around 4p per mile to run this electric model. That's around 2.5 to 6 times cheaper than an equivalent car with either a petrol or diesel engine. By our calculations, a full charge, again on a typical electricity tariff, would cost around £5.31. And of course, as with any EV, there is a zero emissions CO2 figure, although of course the energy to drive this car has to cause pollution somewhere. This Honda has a well-to-wheels CO2 reading of 48.8 grams per kilometre, which actually isn't desperately good. To give you some perspective, the well-to-wheels figure for a rival Mini Electric is 34 grams per kilometre. Quite a lot of thought's gone into the user friendliness of the charging process. We like the way that the bonnet mounted dock has been designed. For example, it glows blue when it's charging, and unlike that of a Mini Electric, it's properly illuminated at night. Honda has even designed the cable to be angled away from the car to protect the paintwork when it's plugged in. Plus, charging using the brand's bespoke designed e-Progress pedestal charger will always take place using the cheapest possible electricity. You don't have to faff about with timers, working out when the tariffs are least expensive. You just plug it in and go. You can monitor the state of the charging process via your Honda Plus app, which can alert you to any charging interruptions and prompt you when the charging's complete. Plus, it can allow you to precondition the cabin climate so you don't waste valuable energy powering up the fan on entry to deal with either a freezing or sweltering cabin. What else? Well, as you'd expect, the navigation system can direct you to the nearest public charging point. There are around 8,000 locations in the UK. In the future, of course, there'll be many more. Honda hopes it's made sure of that by taking a major stake in Ubitricity, a company that installs charging points in street lamps, which may in future make overnight charging accessible to inner city folk. Already these are springing up in central London. The brand is also partnering with Moixa, and that's a smart energy company which manages collection and distribution of electrical energy between cars, homes and the electricity national grid. This in future will allow owners to charge their cars and then sell any unused energy either back into the national grid or use it at home. That future might be bright, quite literally. Anyway, back to the drive elements of efficiency. Obviously, to maximize driving range, the driver is going to have to play his or her part. Obviously, if you keep the driving mode system in its normal rather than in its sport mode, that's really going to help. And equally, obviously, you'll preserve rather more battery life if you maximize your regenerative braking. And you can do that by activating this one pedal button on the lower center stack. Now, you want to keep an eye firmly on the power charge right-hand section of the instrument binnacle screen here, which shows your current power usage or your regenerative charging status, and one on the power flow meter you can access from the central screen EV menu, which shows current energy usage in miles per kilowatt hour. On our test, we've been getting only around 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Plus, the display shows your remaining battery charge percentage and range, along with a suggestion for how much your remaining mileage might be enhanced if you switched off the fan. You can also use a section of the Honda Plus app to assess the driving efficiency of your latest journey. What else? Well, as with any small EV, you'll pay no VED road tax. Depreciation, well, we'd normally expect that on a rare jewel-like little trendsetter like this, residual values would be quite strong, but how will this particular BEV variant fare on the used market in 3 or 4 years' time, when battery technology will have advanced so far that a range of not much more than around 100 miles will seem very low indeed? Well, you do have to wonder. Honda's bullish on this point and predicts a 3-year, 36,000 mile residual value of 48%. We wouldn't bet our house on that. Insurance groups start at 25E for the standard derivative. It's 29E for this faster advanced variant. As expected, there's a normal Honda 3-year 90,000 mile warranty, and when that expires, an extended guarantee can be purchased, which for either a further year or 24 months gives you European breakdown cover and protection against mechanical and electrical faults. The battery has its own 8-year or 100,000 mile warranty, with a guaranteed minimum state of charge of 70% through the warranty period. Service intervals are in line with the rest of the Honda range, so every 12,500 miles or every 12 months, whichever comes around first. Maintenance should cost less though, because the powertrain has so few active components, just an electric motor, an onboard charger, a battery and an inverter. Of course, there are parts that still need maintaining, like the brakes, the filters and the fluids, so your dealer can offer you a 5-year service plan to cover all that. This car, according to Honda, represents the start of its electrification journey. It is a rather late start. Until quite recently, when other brands were fully into EV development, this Japanese maker was still convinced that hybrids were the only solution until hydrogen fuel cell vehicles got going. But the quick about turn that brought us the sports EV concept and then this Honda E production model forced the brand to be radical. We can't help liking this end result. Far from being compromised by battery propulsion, the drive dynamics here, ride, handling and steering in particular, fit our ideal for the kind of thing a small car should really be. And the way that this EV has been benchmarked against bigger and more expensive cars really shows. So much so that you find yourself constantly wanting to drive this one further than it can actually go. But if you can live with the issue of the restricted driving range, which admittedly isn't easy, then there's much here to like, not least the way that this car is designed so differently, both inside and out. Quite a lot of the motor industry thinks that buyers want full electric vehicles to look and feel just like the combustion engine ones that they've left behind. Honda has a different perspective. Now, we'd understand if you didn't like it, there's certainly a lot to get used to. So many EVs today are little more than automotive domestic appliances, joyless things that you'd struggle to bond with. This Honda though, it's different. It's modern yet memorable, both inside and out. And little touches like the clever fascia screens and the virtual door mirrors provide the required cutting edge feel that early adopters of technology tend to like. It'll be a rare choice, chosen by folk who'll love its bijou, distinctive packaging so much that they're happy to pay more for a car that they won't actually be able to travel in quite as far as they might like. The parameters governing its development, electrification, automation and connected services, they seem cold and uninviting. The end product though is anything but. If you like it, you'll love it. If you don't, then simply admire here the kind of innovation that any trend-setting Honda really ought to have. decades ahead, when other current small EVs have been long forgotten, this one will be cherished by the few loyal to it. It's a special little car.